Hi there, choir families. This is Miss Thomas here to show you a little bit about how to deal with those very long hems on your pants and gowns. First off, here are some of the supplies you're going to need. You'll either need some masking tape or this is sewing chalk, but any light colored chalk will do. It'll dust right off of our clothes, but it needs to be a light-ish color so that it will also show up. So these are for marking where the hem needs to go. Next up, we'll need a few pins, probably not as many as I have here, but you're gonna need some pins to hold it in place until you get to the stage where you're fastening it together. Lastly, you'll either need needle and thread or you can use safety pins. You can go back and use some rather large masking tape, but that is probably the trickiest way. It definitely isn't going to stick very easily, but it's better than just trying to deal with a really overly long piece. During the video, I'm going to be using bright yellow, but please don't use bright yellow. It's just so you can see. I would like you to use black so that it won't show up. And lastly, you might need just a measuring tool, a ruler, or a measuring tape. Can be helpful, but it's not necessary. So here is our choir dress, and as you can see, this one is hitting the floor and going past the floor. The length we want is barely touching the floor. A little bit above is fine, but generally going for hitting the floor is a good thing. And the first thing we'll need to have happen is the person who is wearing the dress will need to put it on. I can't make the video and put on a dress, and so I'm going to go ahead and pretend that this little apparatus here serves as the person wearing the dress. So when we come down here at the floor, we see that it is hitting the floor and kind of making an L there. That's what you want to see, because that is going to tell you exactly where you're going to place your marking tool, whether it be the chalk or the tape. Okay, so hopefully this will work with this apparatus I've got. So I've got the chalk and I've got the tape. Either one will work. So it makes the little L where it's hitting the floor, and I'm just gonna mark it on each seam. So I've got the chalk, now I have a little mark. Or I really like using the tape best because you just take it and plop it right on the floor. There it is. And we have a seam here, so I want to mark that seam. I'm looking for my next seam. There's the seam. So I'm going to come along here, make sure it's laying pretty well compared to how it will lay when you're wearing it, so that it's not kind of bunched up or anything funny. And just kind of lay it down. Press the tape down onto the ground. You're going to hit every single one of these seams. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 more in back. So I'm looking for the seam. Comes down from the front side, and I just put it down here. Smash it down onto the floor, and there's going to be one more over here. And then there are 2 in the back. So I'm not going to get this one side right now, I don't think. It's not necessary for demonstration purposes, but you will want to mark it. So we'll go right here, plop it down. Get one more, plop it down. And now you have a really nice marker for when you come back to fix it up. So we're going to do that next. Okay, so now I have the dress laid out as nice and widely spread out on my surface as I can. A dining room table might make a good surface. And so you can see I've got my marks. They're really easy to find. I would have one more here. And what you're basically going to do is kind of play a game of connect the dots. So I'm going to take these 2. Actually, I'm going to flip it inside out. I think life will be a lot easier by doing that. And we're going to flip it. We know we can look at these seams and find the marks. So I've got one here, and so I'm just going to use this tape as the guide, and then I want to line up this seam. But now we have it, you can see already it's kind of bunching up because this is a circle, and a circle is not going to naturally want to lay flat because there's more fabric here than here. So already I can tell, even without measuring, that what I need to do is just flip it in on itself one time, and that's going to solve that pretty well. If it's not perfect, it's okay, but then we're going to flip the whole thing along the edge that we're creating, the seam, and then that's going to make it a lot smoother. Just like that. Now, if yours, so this is where the measuring comes in. This was about 4 inches. So you're gonna basically not wanna go past 2 inches on that seam. So if it is 2 inches, if it's more than 2 inches, you're gonna want to fold it in again. So for instance, if you had one that were 6 inches, you might need to fold it 3 times in order to compensate for how much extra fabric is there. And that won't be noticeable from stage, so it'll be perfectly fine. So again, if it were needing to be even shorter, I would just roll it more. So here would be my initial need, but if I needed it even shorter, I just flip it in again as many times as is necessary, and that will help with the puckering issue because of it being a circle. So meet up this hem, meet up this hem, flip them all in, flip them all in. Do the same in the middle and the part between them. Keep realigning those hems with themselves as needed. And this is the part where we need some real quick pins. If you plan on using a sewing machine, which is fine, you might do better. You probably already know if you're a sewer on a sewing machine that you're gonna wanna do them this direction. If you're not using a sewing machine, you don't need to do them that direction, but it's still fine to do them that direction. If you're doing them by hand and you prefer to do it like this, you can. And if you don't have any sewing skills and you're planning on using safety pins, I would say you're going to want to do them sideways. So I would put one here, and you're going to do them kind of taking up as much room as the pin has and slipping it in there and put it there. So you want a good number of safety pins. This would do it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're doing safety pins, you'll want about that many between seams. So again, if you were sewing by hand, you don't need the safety pins. If you're sewing by machine, you want to put them vertically. If you're sewing by hand, you can put them along with it, but you don't have to. So we're going to just continue that process all the way around the dress. And it will take a little bit of time. But again, this is already started over here. Now I've got a new one over here. And remember, we have that tape there, so you can just flip it right where the tape is and then flip it under. So the tape should be showing. So you want to make sure to mark it at every seam and just connect the dots. I would not go by how much fabric you're taking off of any area, because you're going by what the person's body needs, which could be uneven. So let's just go ahead and do the rest of this with pins so I can show you the whip stitch, the hand method. If you know how to use a sewing machine, I'm going to assume you know how to operate your own machine, and I will let you go to that on your own. But this is if you need instruction on how to hand stitch. All right, so this section I'm going to talk about how to hand stitch, and again, please do use black thread, but for the purposes of the video, I'm going to use bright yellow so that it'll be easy to see what I'm doing. The first thing, of course, is to get your needle ready. with a pin in it. I mean, with the thread in it, forgive me. And remember, we never ever cut the dress. We never ever cut the pants. But I'm using the scissors for the thread and needle only. So basically to thread and needle, I just like pop it in that eye. There's nothing fancy to it. You just try. I would say make sure you have, if you've never done it before, make sure you have a clean edge on the needle, or I'm sorry, on the thread. If it's frayed, if you bit it off, it will not go in the eye of the needle. So I'm going to cut off a medium length. It may or may not be big enough, and that's okay. And so I'm just going to basically start with just catching a little bit of the front side, a very small amount of the front side, and then putting it through the edge, the top edge of my hem. If you sew down close down here, the bottom's just going to flop out. You don't want that to happen. So you have to do the top edge of the part that you've been working with. And now you're going to make a little knot. So hopefully you can see beyond my hands here. I'm just making a standard knot, crossing it over a couple times, pulling it tight. All right, got ourselves, oh, no, still didn't go through. There we go. My thread wants to go the opposite direction I'm trying to make it go, so I'm going to just decide to let it be the boss and go the other way. All right, just kind of twisting it in to get there. All right, good and secure, not going anywhere. And it doesn't have to be super, super close. I'd say like a couple finger widths apart. This is about an inch. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfectly even. And so all I did, I'm always going from the same direction, from the top down. And then I'm going to go about another inch again, going and hooking in some fabric from the top. This is the part that is just the plain dress, and here's the part that's folded. Let's see if I can get a little cloth under there so you can see. That's where I'm getting in. So I'm going above the fold and getting into the fold from the back side of the dress. So if I were to lift the dress, you'd see the needle coming through. And then I'm just going to get it all the way through. And now you can see there's my needle right there. This is the pin that I had before. This is the little stitch that I had just used, and it's going to retighten itself as I go here. Oh, and it came undone. Always fun. It's gotten itself twisted the wrong direction through here, so I'm going to pass it right through. You don't want it to like tie in on itself. You want to keep these little stitches kind of lined up, or they'll just kind of get tangly and messy. So that means that don't cross over the thread that's not sewn yet. That's how to prevent that. So hook it in from above the fold on the front side of the dress, get it through the fold, push it in. You see this little loop, you want to get under the loop. Okay, so this is, see that little diagonal forming? We're just going to do a few more of these. This is the whip stitch, and you can just go all around, do it while you're watching TV or something. And you can get it done probably in 20, 30 minutes. There you go. Probably speed this up if I can. Okay, so you may run out of thread at some point. If you get to the point where you're out of thread, you want to wait till it's got about that much left. And then you can start just tying a knot so that you can start up again. So let's pretend that I've run out of thread, or I'm close. I'm about 6 inches or so. So I'm going to plop it through here. Oh, and it came out my needle eye. The needle eye is very big on this needle. All right, so you see this little loop? This time, because I'm tying it off and I want to start a new thread or I'm done, I'm going to pull it through. And some people just do it once. I don't really trust it, so I like to do it twice. And another thing that you can do to make sure it's nice and secure is this doggone little eye needle is just really big. It's meant for fat thread, I think. All right, so I've got this loop. You can do 2 pass-throughs that hole. So I just stuck it through one direction and go the same exact direction again, and I'm just gonna pull it down, and now that's not going anywhere. And so again, scissors only on the thread, no scissoring on our dresses. And there we have the end knot. And you can see it's right along, right above. And I'm going to get rid of my pin that I don't need. Oops, there we go. Okay. And once it's sewn, you won't need your tape. It's very easy to pull masking tape off, but if you have 2 hands, much easier. And then the front side, you will use black thread, so you won't see all that, but you can see it's just a little bit. And that's perfect to keep your hem in place. And that pretty much concludes the tutorial.